Larissa, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Tell me about your business. Tell me where you guys are located. Tell me your website address, your Instagram, any other social media stuff.
Okay, thanks so much for having me, Shane. I am in beautiful Costa Rica, raining right now because we are in the rainy season, but normally it's sunny. And my business is Weddings Costa Rica. Website is weddingscostarica.com, and same with my Facebook, my Instagram, you name it. I'm weddings with an S, Costa Rica. That's
Weddings
everywhere.
Costa Rica. That's perfect,
That's right.
It's like perfect. Now, so how long have you been in Costa Rica? How long have you been doing this?
Okay, I've been in Costa Rica since 2002, and we opened our doors in 2003. So
Wow.
that's 17 years we've been doing weddings.
Yeah. So tell me what was the inspiration for doing weddings, and how it's been, where'd you get into it and why?
Okay. Well, funnily enough, my parents were event producers, and they produced the largest multicultural festival in Canada for many years. It was a 4-day free festival with like over 100,000 people in attendance every year. So yeah, I grew up. This is like we're talking 70s. Yeah, it was like we didn't have computers back then. And after I graduated, I was a dancer, and then I retired. I ended up working as a publicist and doing marketing. And I was working as a unit publicist, which is we do all the film and television filming, collecting all the photos and all the stories. So I was in Costa Rica working on a movie of the week. I met this very handsome fellow on set who was an actor, and decided I wanted to move down to be with them. So I left everything behind. I moved to Costa Rica. People thought I was insane because I didn't have a job. I didn't speak Spanish. And what was I going to do? So when I got here, we had dial-up internet. There was no social media. There was no laptop lifestyle. So I had to pivot because I couldn't do my job as a publicist. We got married on the beach where we met. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am having so many issues. Now I'm here in the country, and my husband is Costa Rican and speaks Spanish. What do people do who aren't here and want to get married? So there was an opportunity. I was working for a travel agent at the time, and there was an opportunity for me to start doing weddings for them. So I did. And before you knew it, like it just blew up, and I ended up having to leave and start my own business full time. And that was tricky back then because, again, without social media or Facebook ads, you had basically the only option was to spend a lot of money in the glossy wedding magazines, and they were extremely expensive. And I didn't have the funds for that. So I put on my publicity hat and just started like doing what I knew what to do. We ended up with one of the first weddings outside of Mexico, south of the border, to be published in a major wedding publication. And then, the media eats itself. So it just snowballed. And I went on my Martha Stewart, Living Radio. And then I got named to the A-list, top 30 in the world by Destination Weddings and Honeymoons magazine. And then that just blew off all the doors. In our 4th year of business, we hit 7 figures. Wow. And I had 14 employees.
That's awesome.
We were doing the travel and all of the wedding destination wedding planning.
Right, because the guests are coming down, so you got to help with that, right? Like the logistics of all that and stuff.
Yes, because again, when we started, there was no Expedia, there was Travelocity, none of that. So, people were very reliant on us here on the ground to be able to, do the logistics. Like people look at the map of Costa Rica and they think, oh my gosh, that's such a, it's so small. It's the size of like West Virginia or Nova Scotia. We're going to hit like 5 volcanoes in one afternoon. And it's like, no. The roads here are like, we've got a mountain range down the middle. It's single lanes. Like we don't have high-speed highways. So it can take usually anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to drive from one place to the other. So even if it looks like a short distance, it's just, you're in a whole different world. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's the things that people wouldn't understand, right? Unless they were working with someone in the space down there.
exactly. And I actually ended up, I wrote a guidebook that was published in 2006 for
Nice.
Brad Publishing in England and on Costa Rica. So you can
Yeah.
literally say I wrote the book on Costa Rica.
So for people that are thinking about destination wedding, why Costa Rica versus like Mexico or the Caribbean? You know, a lot of people from the U.S. Will typically go to Mexico or to the Caribbean or even Hawaii kind of thing. So, what's different and unique about Costa Rica besides being, it is a unique place, but what's the specific uniqueness about it that makes it such a great place to have a destination wedding?
I think it really comes down to the slogan that we use here, which is Pura Vida. I mean, they say it everywhere. Like if you say, hey, how are you? Pura Vida. Okay, I'll see you later. Pura Vida. It means literally pure life. And it's not a marketing slogan. It's not a marketing campaign. Like this is Costa Rica. So people here are, we don't have an army. It was abolished in 1948. So people are very mellow. They're not prone to, get upset about things. They're genuinely happy people. In fact, Costa Rica has been named multiple times as the happiest country on earth. We're highly educated. We're one of only 2 countries in Latin America where you can drink the water.
Wow.
So there's no worry about, Montezuma's revenge. We're the most biodiverse place on the planet, even though we only take up like 0.4% of the Earth's surface. We have almost 4% of the entire biodiversity of the
Really?
world in
Wow.
Costa Rica. We have
Wow.
13 microclimates. So you can go from mountains to cloud forests, beaches, tropical rainforest, dry forest. Like it's just, you drive an hour and you're in a completely different landscape. So it's not just beaches, like a lot of Caribbean countries, like it's an island. So it's like you've got your hotel, you've got
Yeah.
the sand. Here you can be going up to the cloud forest and it's like being in some mystical, land,
Nice.
and then you drive another hour or 2 and you're at the beach. So there's literally something for everybody. If you don't like the heat, great. You can go to the Monteverde cloud forest. You can go to the Arenal volcano. It's a safe country. You don't have to be worried. Like I know there's a lot of countries, you don't want to be walking off the resort. The focus here is on boutique hotels. We have very few resorts. The majority of our accommodations are individually, like small mom and pop type of
Yeah. Interesting.
under 30 rooms. So you're in it for a very unique experience, as opposed to being, I'm in a 500 or 300 room hotel that literally could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Like when you're here, you're in Costa Rica. And everyone always says they can't get over how nice everybody is, how friendly. Because we have the highest standard of living, you don't get the people, bugging you for money or trying to sell you stuff or
Mhm.
bugging you on the beach. Like you can lie on the beach and no one's going to bother you. The other thing is the food. We have Costa Rican cooking is not like Mexican food. Like it's not spicy but it is super, super fresh. And everyone's always like, oh my gosh, it's just so tasty because everything is like, we've got 2 oceans. So
Yeah.
like fresh fish and vegetables and fruits, like you've got literally everything.
Yeah.
So, and same with the flowers. We're one of the leading exporters of orchids in the world.
Really?
And yeah. And
Well, yeah, because the biodiversity and the climate, right? Like, yeah.
we have everything. We grow even tulips, not too often, but we have tulips, the roses, calla lilies, hydrangeas, like huge hydrangeas, year round, So it's like literally, if you want the really tropical to like the more soft flowers, all of that is available. From a vendor point of view, we have some incredible vendors. I remember I was at a Engage conference a couple of years ago in Arizona, and one of my roommate that I was sharing the room with had just won like the top wedding planner outside of I think Orange County or something.
Yeah.
And I'm showing her some photos, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like, where did you get those chairs?" And I'm like, "The rental shop in San Jose." She's like, "Oh, those are gorgeous. I haven't seen anything like that." So we have incredible rentals. When I started, we were basically like, would you like the red tie or the blue tie around
Yeah.
around the chair cover? We've come a
Yeah.
long way, baby. In fact, we have a number of vendors now who are taking wood that has like fallen in the forest, or they're repurposing wood and creating amazing, precious wood tables and chairs for weddings.
Wow.
Yeah, we've really come a long way. One of the duos I use, guitar and violin, they have won 3 Grammy Awards.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we have some really incredible talent here, and it's like basically anything you really want, you can
Yeah.
get.
So from a cost perspective, how reasonable is it to come get married in Costa Rica?
Well, okay, I'll be honest with you. It's not as cheap as getting married, say, in Mexico. Usually. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a kind of a blanket statement. I just had a client who was at her friend's wedding in Mexico, and they had their hair and makeup done, and the price was like, for hair and makeup, was double what our top people here charge.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people are like, oh, they're thinking that, I don't know, it's going to be like $5 for a bouquet.
Yeah.
Which it's not. Like, you're still going to get an amazing, like a bride's bouquet for around $120, $130, depending,
It's not bad.
with orchids and whatnot. But you can get a meal like for $55, taxes and tip included, for like a 3-course plated
Three-course
meal.
meal.
Yeah.
So if you have, and then how's like transportation getting down there? Like flights in are okay. To get there, the logistics of getting you and your guests there, how does that look?
So easy. It is so easy, Shane, because we have the 2 airports. We have Liberia, and then the main one is San Jose, and there's daily flights from literally all over the US and Canada, as well as Europe. So
Right.
it's very easy. If you're flying into Liberia, like that is the airport closest to like where the Four Seasons and Andaz and that's where like you'll find the all-inclusive resorts, and the larger, like the JW Marriott's, they're all up there.
I
As
got you.
well as like the really beautiful beaches, like Endless Summer 2, the surfing movie from back in the 80s, was filmed up around Tamarindo. So, and from there to any of these beaches, it's all flat, and it's maybe about anywhere from 45 to an hour and a half
Nice.
hour drive. And
Yeah.
again, it's not on the highway. You're going through like little towns and by the ocean. So it's like an experience. San Jose, that's if you were going to go to, say, like the rainforest area, like Manuel Antonio, which is very famous, beautiful beach, tons of monkeys. That's about a 2-hour drive, two and a
Okay.
half hour drive from the airport. And again, you're driving through all the little towns and villages. So it's not like, oh, I'm on the I-95 for like 2.5
Mhm.
hours.
Is it better for you to rent a car, like if you were to come, or just have someone drive you around? I mean, seems like it might be easier to have someone drive you around. They know how to get it.
Well, here's the thing. Costa Ricans drive pretty crazy.
Yeah.
For all the pura vida, I think they take it out when they get behind the wheel of a car. They're very aggressive, and they do some really crazy things. So, if you get stressed out by driving, then I would say leave the driving to a professional. There's tons of great transports that will pick you up at the airport. Even have a cooler of drinks and snacks and whatever. And once you're here, it's really easy to get around. If you're in a lot of the beach towns, like, to get a taxi is super easy. Uber isn't really, it's big here in the Central Valley, but once you get outside of the Central Valley,
Yeah.
San Jose, it's really not, it's not around. But the taxis are very easy to get and very affordable. So
Good.
yeah.
Cool.
But if you're doing tours, like the tour will pick you up at your hotel or your
Yeah.
villa and bring you back. So
Yeah.
there's not like a lot of need really to have a car.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So let's say you're coming there to get married. Are there things you should be thinking about? What's the process? Like, if I wanted to contact you and say, hey, I wanted to have a destination wedding in Costa Rica, what does that process look like? What do you go through with them?
Okay, well, my process is I try to streamline it. I find my clients tend to be busy professionals who want a beautiful wedding that's a reflection of their personality, but they don't have, the 250 hours it typically takes to plan a wedding on your own.
Yeah.
Especially, it's not even taking into account a wedding in another country with a different language.
Yeah.
So over the years, I've been able to create a very streamlined process. I have a questionnaire that I ask them to fill out so I get an idea of, what they're looking for, what's their style. And if they haven't chosen a location, then that helps me be able to pinpoint, well, where should we direct you? Because for me, the location is key. Like that is like the cornerstone of the whole, everything else that you do.
Yeah.
If some people are like, oh, like we want to have a real boho, like we love surfing, we want to have like, in Santa Teresa, and that's where like, Giselle Bundchen has her house, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers used to go surfing and whatnot. It's a really funky spot. It's beautiful beaches, and the surfing is amazing, and it's raw and wild. But you have to get there either by taking a little puddle jumper and then driving for like an hour and a half, and the roads are not the greatest by the time you get to the end, or you have to go drive from San Jose, wait for the ferry, take the ferry, which is another hour and a half, and then drive. So it's not an easy spot to get to. And, it's a dirt road, dirt road downtown, which is, if you're an adventurous kind of younger crowd who's into like surfing and yoga, it's a perfect spot for you. But if you've got like, kind of your mom or the aunts and people who haven't really traveled that much.
Yeah, that can be difficult.
Yeah, it's not going to be the best location. So we try to figure out where's the best spot. Usually you can have like one hotel, it would be like the wedding hotel or the villa. We have tons of beautiful villas as well. And usually the people will have a couple of options so that if people are in a different, economic reality, they're not feeling like, oh, I can't afford this hotel. It's like, no, there's another hotel just up the road that's in a different price point. Don't worry. Yeah. And then we arrange transportation on the wedding day to bring everyone who's off property, to bring them and then take them back home.
Sure. That's great.
So yeah, and then the way that I break things down once we start working together, and we've got the location, is we get the room block, get that all nailed down. Then I like to focus on kind of the vendors first, like get your photographer, videographer, because those go fast, right?
Yeah.
Get those done. Musicians, DJ, if you're doing catering, if it's at a villa. Otherwise, if it's at a hotel, you have to use a hotel caterer. Get your cake maker figured out. Then I like to go into ceremony, like let's focus on getting that ceremony, that vision, because that kind of anchors everything else. So how do you want that to look like? Where are we going to have it? What kind of chairs? What kind of florals? Music. We get all of that tidied up, buttoned up. The next, we will go into the reception, because that's usually a little more involved. Yeah. And we're taking cues from the ceremony usually. Then once that's done, then we'll go in like, okay, let's talk cocktail hour, work on the decorations for the cake, personal flowers, welcome bags, thank you gifts, like that type of. So it's like, I always say to my clients, think of this as a painting. We're taking the big bold strokes first, and then we go in with the smaller and smaller paintbrushes.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good. Are there things that couples should be thinking about when they come, like if they're thinking about a wedding in Costa Rica, are there things specifically they should be thinking about that they might not think about if they were getting married somewhere else, like destination wedding in the US or something?
Yes, well, okay, we have 2 seasons in here. We have the dry season, which generally runs like December through to April, and then we have like the green season or the rainy season, which we're in right now, which is typically during the day it'll be sunny and hot, and then late afternoon, early evening we tend to get an intense rain, and then now it's clearing up. Yeah. But usually we would do the ceremony around 4 o'clock because we were so close to the equator. During like the winter, it's dark by just after 5:30. And in the summer, by 6:15 it's dark. Yeah. So we don't have like that long, languorous magic hour like you get in North America. So you have to, because it's hot, right? Like even at 4 o'clock, it's still pretty bright and kind of hot. I say 4 o'clock normally, that's because it gives us wiggle room. As long as we're off and away by 4:30, we are fine, because typically ceremonies don't last more than 10, 15 minutes. Yep. that allows us to go right into the photo session and cocktail hour. So usually, we do the group photos first. As soon as everyone's, as they're being released from the photo session, they go and they enjoy the cocktails and the hors d'oeuvres, and they watch the sunset. And then everyone just moves in for dinner. Usually we have to have the music off by 10 o'clock. If you're in, because of just the noise ordinance, remember it's because we're so close to the equator, the sun comes up by 5.
Yeah.
So a lot of tours and whatnot are done early in the morning, especially because the animals are most active.
Yeah.
Around 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning. Plus, the later you go, then the hotter it gets.
Yeah.
So so generally you want to try and have the ceremony, usually around 4:30. Reception's over by 10. People go, oh, but that seems like it's like so short. Thing to remember, most of the wedding venues are open air, right? So we're not in an air-conditioned, temperature-controlled ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
Where, it does get comfortable. Like once the sun has gone down, it's like usually in the low 80s.
Yeah.
But it's still like, people are
It's still humid, right? It's still hot. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And they've been, and usually what happens is that people get down here, they're like party. And if they're in the pool, they've been drinking, they're in the sun. They usually, overdo the sun. Maybe they overdo the drinking. So by the time the wedding comes, like they're not in top of conditions.
Yeah.
So by 10 o'clock, like I remember one couple coming up to me at 9 saying, we're done.
Let's get this over with.
Get this over with, man. And I've had other client, I remember he was from Spain, and he was adamant they were going to go till 4 o'clock in the morning. And they had hired this amazing band that wasn't going to start until midnight, and then or 11, and then we're going to have a DJ. And by 12:30, they were shutting it down because they were exhausted. It's like, you have a 12-hour wedding. So, and I've come from a showbiz background. So my maxim is always leave them wanting more. Like you never want to be the wedding where it was like that one couple was kind of like weaving on the dance floor and everybody else is like gone home or waiting for the music to end.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Any specific other advice that you would have for couples that are planning a destination wedding in Costa Rica?
For the brides, I would say think about heat and humidity, for your wedding clothes, for the guys as well, like a tuxedo, not a great idea. You'd be surprised what I've seen over the years.
Yeah.
I had one woman beach wedding and she had a mermaid dress with all these netting, and she almost passed out during the photos. So I was in there with scissors cutting out all the netting. We were putting ice cubes down her dress because she couldn't, it was like a polyester.
Yeah.
So think about breathable materials. Think about if you're getting married out on the sand, you're not be able to wear heels.
Yeah.
Sand is usually hot. You're probably going to want to have flip-flops or something. So think about that when you're getting your dress length for the alterations. Hair. Having your hair down in loose curls, don't, because I've yet to see any couple, and we're talking 17 years, where this has actually turned out well, because with the heat and humidity, it doesn't matter how much hairspray they put in, it just starts to fall.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like scraggly. So, updo is going to be much cooler as well. You might want to consider changing into a lighter, cooler dress for the reception and for dancing.
Yeah, that's good.
What else?
For guests?
For guests, again, breathable, wear like cottons, linens, anything like that, which is going to be a light fabric. Come with a sense of adventure. Like things, There's a thing here we call Tico time. Like people move at a slower pace and just kind of relax into it. And things will, like with weddings, like the vendors we use, like they're all, we don't operate on Tico time, but just generally, being down here, you're going to see things where, especially I see people from New York, the first 48 hours, they're about to
they're probably going crazy, right?
It's like, oh, you're a New Yorker. Okay. And then a couple of days later, they're like, oh, I can really get into this.
Yeah.
don't be afraid to try new things. Like the food is fine, the water is fine. Yeah,
Good.
most people speak English, so don't be afraid.
Yeah, good. Okay, so let's switch sides a little bit and talk about the
Okay.
business side of things. For you as a business owner, what would you say over the past couple of years has worked well for you?
Well, I might be a little bit biased because my background is in publicity, but I mean, definitely publicity. It's that's when I first started my business, you have to remember, like back in 2000, 3, people,
Yeah,
Costa Rica was still kind of like where there was still this mentality that we were living in grass huts or um, like just, oh, hold on 2 seconds. I just have to close this. My husband's coming home. Um, that, sorry,
no worries.
dogs ring it out. It was just a lot of misconceptions. Like people thought that, because there had been the war in Nicaragua, there had been the war in Panama. So they didn't really know about us and that we were peaceful. So there was a lot of fear about that.
Hmm.
So publicity really helped generate a sense of, oh, okay, well, this is what's going on down there. And then also it's just like showcasing my business and me as a wedding planner as an expert. And
Yeah,
that when you're presented as an expert by the media, then people are like, they just have a sense of, oh, okay, this is someone that knows what they're doing. I can trust them. Yeah, because a lot, like I remember back in the day, I'd have like parents who didn't want to wire the money. They were afraid that we weren't going to show up, that we didn't really exist. They're
yeah,
like the Nigerian prince who wanted you to. Oh, my father has sent me to. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it gives you that legitimacy, and which of course, like everybody can benefit from publicity because everybody can needs to let their expertise shine. But when you're dealing with a business that is in another country, and it just there's a whole other fear factor that you need to tamp down,
yeah,
and publicity is the easiest way to showcase that. And the other thing I'm going to say, like, I know now everything is like social media and Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Nothing against social media. However, for the amount of time that people spend on social media, they even took a fraction of that and worked on publicity, the ROI would be massive. Because think about how much time people spend doing Instagram stories and Facebook stories. They're gone within 24 hours. Poof,
yeah.
like they never existed. Even with your, how long does a tweet stick around for? Like 20 minutes. How long is an Instagram post seen?
Hmm.
Or, Facebook, like
Well, and it's
within.
so noisy. I mean, you might, if you even get seen at all.
Exactly. It's like 2% of your audience is going to see that post because of the algorithm. Now, as opposed to, say, if you spent maybe instead of an hour a day doing social media, like cut it back a bit, put 10, 20 minutes a day to the media, do like publicity. And I still get people coming to my website from stories that were posted, in online magazines 10 years ago.
Wow.
Like, because that's all that SEO do is from a much larger publication that's ranking higher
Yeah.
with Alexa. So when you have like a higher ranking site pulling into yours, that helps raise yours. Like I have literally not done any ads in, oh my gosh, since like I did Google ads for a while, I think like in 2006, 2007. And I literally have done nothing since.
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
just been publicity.
That's great.
I've become friends with a writer who does a lot for Martha Stewart weddings and Wedding Wire and whatnot. And because I've gained her trust over the years, she contacts me when she needs hey, I've got the story, Larissa, can you?
Yeah.
So, which is fantastic, right? So that's my mentality. That's what I've been doing. That's where my focus has been. And yeah, I honestly haven't paid anyone for SEO. I haven't paid for ads or anything like that.
It's good. It's good advice. What would you say, like outside of COVID, what would you say has been your biggest challenges over the past couple of years?
Well, I mean, the marketplace here has definitely gotten more crowded.
Yeah.
Like everybody, like, oh, I got married. Now I'm going to be a wedding planner. Um, you know, like, there's I've seen a lot of people come and go. More people trying to get that piece of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, our tourism board doesn't support our industry. They have not spent any money to advertise weddings or honeymoons. That has all been completely on the shoulders of the hotels and us planners. But then so people are all trying to like get into this crowded marketplace, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people who, like anywhere in the wedding industry, you get someone who is a pretty novice,
Yeah.
and because they have a pretty website, and that can, especially with dealing with weddings here, like there are so many variables that can go wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as a negative, but it's just you're dealing with the highways. Like sometimes I've had there's been one, like I remember once I was going to a rehearsal to do, it wasn't a dinner, it was just a rehearsal. So I was just going to drive an hour from here, there and back. And I left 2 hours early, because I always like to leave early.
Yeah.
And there was a 6-car accident.
Wow.
And it completely shut down the highway, And I sat there for like an hour. And then they eventually, we were able to snake around. I was able to, at that, and I just had to turn around and go home. But I had a situation once where, there was like a fatal accident, and the lawyer who was going to do the wedding couldn't get there on time. So I had to step in and officiate the wedding.
Yeah.
And then when he was able to get through, then he came with the papers and they signed everything. So it's just, we've had weddings in like November when it's gotten like really, that's like the really rainy season. We've had flooding a couple of years ago. Like we're not in a hurricane zone at all, because basically once from 9 degrees from the equator upwards is a hurricane zone, and we're not in that.
Yeah.
But with the weather being so crazy, like I think it was like 3 years ago, we had a wedding. The bride was insisting to get married in October in the cloud forest in Monteverde, and the hotel had told her this is a bad idea. I told her this is a bad idea. Nope, she was bent and determined. So the Wednesday before her Sunday wedding, first time in Costa Rica's history, we get hit with a hurricane.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
We got hit with a hurricane. Monteverde has one road, that's only like a one road that goes in or out.
Yeah.
Mudslides, the whole town was cut off from, you could not get in or out. We had like 40,000 people who were displaced because of the flooding and the mudslides. And we had to find a whole new location. Now, my husband happened to be, and this is how crazy Costa Rica is, he was like an hour away from Monteverde. He's in the Arenal volcano area. And he's like, oh yeah, I've been trying to get in touch with you. I'm like, what do you mean? The hurricane. He's like, what hurricane? I'm like, I have been without power for 23 hours. Like, what do you mean that you don't, what are you talking about? What hurricane? He's like, no, it's sunny here. So it's because we have so many weird pockets and microclimates within microclimates. Arenal had been spared. So then, we're rushing around trying to find how we can move a 70-person wedding and all of their guests who are arriving in the next 48 hours.
Wow.
So we had to find a whole new location and rearrange everything. And, she wanted white hydrangeas. There's one grower here that grows white hydrangeas. And unfortunately, there was no pass. They couldn't get out because the mudslide.
Yeah, so you couldn't get the flowers either, right?
Well, those particular flowers, but there was like one of the bridesmaids was like, well, can't you just go to another florist? I'm like, I don't understand. Like, there's one grower for white hydrangeas. Like, they're not they're not an easy flower to grow.
Yeah.
And we can't get them. It's not a matter of not wanting. It's physically impossible.
Yeah.
But you know what? The wedding went ahead. It didn't rain, and everything was great. So it's like, but that's a novice planner would not have been able to negotiate all of that,
Yeah.
So that's the biggest challenge I'm seeing, is just that, there's been people who've been cropping up who aren't giving the optimal service. And, it just kind of puts a bad taste in, Not saying that the whole, like, it taints everybody. I mean, obviously there's some amazing wedding professionals here, but it's just like that one or two, which is the case. Like, I
But
think
that
is here
happens
in
everywhere,
Canada.
you know, that
Yeah.
happens in any market and everywhere. And, you know, when the service has a low barrier to entry, then it makes it even easier for more people to get into it. Then you end up with that situation. So
Yes.
unfortunately, planning, photography, DJ, those are all low barrier to entry services. And so it makes it, especially planning. I mean, what does it really take to open up your own planning company?
Well,
Unfortunately.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And you know, and for, you know, and the thing is, and now because of the internet, I'm getting people who, this is the biggest challenge. People trying to find their own vendors, you know, because they found somebody cheaper. I
Yeah.
mean, luckily, like the clientele that I work with tend to be, again, like they're relying on me, and I'm just like, look, like I work with the A team. I've done over 600 weddings all over the country. I'm not gonna, like, I'm very, very picky about who I work with because you get one shot at this.
That's right. Yeah.
But right. And unfortunately, 99% of the time when someone's brought in their own vendor, it has been difficult. It's been a challenge because they're just not, like, they're not professional, or they're not up to those standards, or, you know, like, so that's, I'd say it's my biggest challenge, is dealing, because then I'm kind of scrambling, like my team and I are scrambling to deal with this less than optimal situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. If you had to go back 5 years ago and tell yourself something, what would you tell yourself?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. 5 years ago, what did I do 5 years earlier? Well, I would say probably, you know, don't buy mason jars. No, I think that, you know, just automate faster. You know, like I mean, I remember when we were at 14 employees, this was like, you know, 2007, because we just didn't have the automation.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, from a pure business standpoint, you know, is just be really, sometimes you grow because you think, oh, I have to be the biggest, as bigger is better. You kind of get caught into some of those trappings, you know. And I got into the where I was selling invitations to the local market here, you know, from representing Crane and Vera Wang and William Arthur. So I had to have like a what do you call it, like a commercial front. And so I had this, you know, big commercial space, and I had all of our rentals, like, you know, all the stuff of rentals, which you know, you would buy something for a wedding, or you'd have something custom made, and it hangs around for like 6 years until you're like, well, what the heck am I schlepping this around? Which is another thing is, don't carry an inventory, and if you're not a rental shop. And it was like, then I started looking at, like, why am I spending over $20,000 a year for this space when, like, I have a handful of clients that are coming in for these invitations? And second of all, my clients are all online. Like, if they do come in ahead of time to meet the vendors and do the, you know, go see everything, we're not coming to my office. We're going to the rental shop. We're going to go look at the florist. Like, we're not hanging out here. And that's one thing in retrospect, I wish I had not been seduced, I guess, by thinking, oh, I'm going to have like this beautiful space, and, you know, have this beautiful like furniture, and people walk in, and yeah.
Do you feel like maybe you didn't take the time to think through that process, or do you think it was like you didn't really pay attention to your clientele at first and figure out, well, they're all online, why do I need a space? Or, you know, because, you know, retrospect is always like, you know, the thing, right? But do you think, like, when you decided to get this space, you were just seduced by the glamour of having your own space and this and that, right? It wasn't.
Well, no, I'd had my own space. Like, we had just downsized because I actually had, you know, at that point when we had 14 employees, we had purchased, like, it was a big property. It was like a big house built in the 70s, and then there was a smaller house in the back that we rented out, because what's 14 people that needed the space. So we had like the travel agency, and we had the wedding, and we had like 3 planners and the assistants, and again, like we weren't automated the way we are now, and that was just a huge expense because of the upkeep. And looking back on it, there's this thing where you start looking at the tipping point, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the more employees I have, that means I have to generate more income.
Mm-hmm.
And the more expenses you have means like you've always, it's like in this hamster wheel. And then we had sold that property, and because I sold the travel agency, because I had my daughter, and it was like couldn't be a mom to like 15 kids. So then we downsized, and that's when we got into this commercial space, because I had, it was like gotten the opportunity to represent the invitations here, and I thought this was a good business. Like, I didn't do my market research about the invitations.
Yeah.
And what I thought was going to be a great, hey, like we can get these beautiful invitations. They're going to be, shipped in from the US. It's going to be a fraction of the price of what they're here. You cannot get this work in Costa Rica. Like, it has to come from the US. The market here wanted to hold it in their hands and see exactly what their invitation was going to look like before they printed all of them. They couldn't extrapolate, like, here it is on the wording with the fonts on the computer, and here's the paper sample with the ink. Nope, They had to see everything like an actual like mock-up. So I basically was paying for this space for nothing, because I just,
the market didn't really exist, right?
The market didn't exist. So then I ended up just, at that point we had downsized, and then I started looking at the numbers, and it was like, if I just cut it back, I can make probably more money with doing less weddings with less, you know what I mean? Like, because there's that tipping point there, and it's like, well, so that thing is from a business perspective is, don't get seduced by the size. Yeah. Because bigger is not always better.
Yeah. Well, there's a scale thing, right? So it's like you said, you can either scale to, but there is a tipping point. At some point, it's going to cost you more to do something. I've heard that a couple of times, actually, from a couple of planners, where they said to me, like, I just stopped doing I only do a couple a year because it costs too much to do anything more than that. Like,
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I moved the office. I now have a home office. I don't have that overhead. I'm far happier. Like, I remember my poor daughter, she was young at the time, and daycare would, drop her off at our office, and she would just be bored beyond tears. Or she'd come home, be with a nanny, and then be waiting for me to come home. And it's kind of like, looking back on it, I was like, I should have just done this so much earlier for so many different reasons. Yeah. But the other thing that you're asking about, a challenge, this is the big, for me as a destination wedding planner who because we ended up doing travel again for our clients. Yeah. The change in the marketplace when it comes to travel has been drastic. And, because now everybody's doing everything with Expedia and Travelocity, and even the hotels, because they're in competition with Expedia et al. So they offer these crazy deals, but they can't give us as a wedding planner the same rates, right? Mm-hmm. Because we have to have that commission margin in there, right? Like, I can't afford to do this for free. I used to have someone, I did have a travel department, like I had a travel manager, and eventually wasn't enough business to make it worthwhile. Yeah. And then top of it all, we have very high credit card fees here in Costa Rica. That's over 4%. We've got a new VAT. So every time I pass a credit card, there's an automatic, it's almost 9%. Wow. So, even though they give us a 20% commission, which is, pretty healthy, but we end up cutting it down to 15 to give a better rate to the couple. Yeah. And their guests. Oh, then you tack on 9%. It's like, so what am I working for? Yeah. And then people will see like something on Travelocity, and they're like, or Expedia, like, well, how come the rate's lower on there than what we're getting as a wedding group? Like, we should be getting, and they don't understand that, it's, you're not necessarily guaranteed of having those rooms, first of all, with Expedia.
Yeah.
And second of all, they can't give that same price, because these are like last minute sell-offs. When you're doing a wedding group, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, is everything that is like, say you've got this date of like 5 days. So everything people were booking before that date,
Yep.
are going to lose business, because this date onwards, they can't get any rooms. And then they're going to lose business from on the back end. So people who wanted to stay from this date to there, all of those people can't book, because the wedding group has all of those rooms.
Yeah.
So that's why, hotels, again, we're dealing with small boutique hotels. They don't have the inventory. Second of all, in the US, wedding hotels tend to be like these giant hotels who are geared to the business traveler. So Monday to Friday is when they're busy. It's the weekends where they're empty. And that's why they're able to incentivize having a wedding there and give such great rates, because they need to fill up their rooms.
Yeah.
It's the opposite here. We're tourism based.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you have a boutique hotel, which is small, 30 rooms, right? It's hard to maintain the inventory. Well, I'm going to block off 20 rooms for, like you said, like the booking time and all that. Yeah. It's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I had a situation. We had, I think it was a 30-room hotel, and the couple had booked, excuse me, I think it was like 15 rooms. And in the end, they ended up going with 3.
wow.
So we had all this inventory like 2 months before the wedding that we had to scramble. I think it was a month before the wedding.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 So the hotel lost out on those other 12 rooms, right?
Well, yeah. And everyone's like, oh, but we're having a wedding here. It's like, well, yeah, well, and then, yes, you're making money off the food and beverage, but there's not the margins there that people think there are.
No, not especially on food. Yeah.
No. And then especially, like people are going off property.
Yep.
It's like all that.
Gotcha.
It's not like they're just making money hand over fist when it comes to having a wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. True. I got your, the last question is usually a story about your wedding, but the story you told earlier was great. So I'll just use that one.
Okay.
So thanks so much, Larissa, for doing this. I really appreciate it, all the way from Costa Rica. And it's great to meet you, and I appreciate you taking the time for this.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Bye.
Bye.